Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rogue Wave podcast, the frequency for all things pop culture and the disruptors behind it. We talk comics, movies, TV, and pop culture every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on Facebook.com/WeAreRogueMatter and YouTube.com/RogueMatter. You can also find us on Twitch and Twitter. And then once this is complete, this gets churned out into its own audio podcast found where all podcasts can be downloaded. I'm your host, Michael Dolce, as always, joined by the Lord of the Radio himself, Mr. Hassan Godwin. How you doing, sir?
Everything's great.
Do you know what I never actually asked you? I never actually asked you if you ever wanted your real name revealed.
No, you didn't, but I mean...
Like this whole time, I've just basically been like, oh, it's your nickname is the Lord of the Radio. And then I realized, like, maybe you just never wanted people to know who you really were.
Well, if that's the thing, then it's been thoroughly ruined, so I guess we don't have to worry about it.
I mean, and not only ruined, I mean, really just destroyed.
Yeah, for almost 6 years, going on 6 years. So
I mean, just consistently beat into the ground as well. It's really not, there's no...
I'm glad you're laughing about it, though. Did I accidentally out you and just basically give away your name, your identity, and your position there? I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. That's kind of a mess up on my part. Anyway, yeah, bygones, right?
My bad, bro. My bad. From now on, though, here's the thing. Every new we only have like 6 listeners anyway, so every new listener that we get, we could start today, and then they'll never know.
Yeah. Yes, all they have to do is avoid the couple of hundred archive episodes. And
well, it's like a series of accumulation, right? So like if they start listening, maybe they'll tune in next week, and then they'll tune in the week after, and then they'll be like, well, I don't want to listen to all the old content. I only want the new content, you know? So it's like
I mean, I've done everything Aaron says I thought it was 8 listeners. I've done everything that I could possibly do. I've changed the name on the marquee. I've changed, but no, I still get called out. So I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, we have a tremendous show tonight with the Lord of the Radio himself, who shall go nameless from here on in.
Right. Good for
me. Today, it's like a diet, man. The diet starts today.
Yes. Today's the first day of the rest of the show.
By the way, go check out Seal of Fire with a cover by Hassan Godwin, who is not the Lord of the Radio.
No, we don't know who that Hassan Godwin guy is.
See, I'm doing this already.
That guy is awesome, though. He's amazing. More amazing than I am.
Very good artist. But launching today on RogueMatter.com, we have Rogue Matter Presents Data Decoded. That is a podcast with yours truly as the co-host. The gist of the podcast is that Deanna McFadder, is a data guru, and I am a pop culture geek. Together, we are Data Decoded. Each episode, Deanna, founder of Nachi, which is a very prestigious data company that works in Hollywood, joins myself to decode the data and technology behind some of your favorite story elements in movies, TV shows, and comic books. One episode already aired last month. This month, or today, I should say, we are decoding The Matrix. On the latest episode, we decode the concept of whether we're living in the Matrix. How close are we to the world of the Matrix, and how do we even know it? Talking about metaverses and all of the AI technology that we have here. So it's a cool podcast. It's actually a short listen. The episodes are 8 to 15 minutes long. And we just decode the one topic. So go check it out on RogueMatter.com. You can download it on our app. We have an app because we're cool, and we have it coming on right after this show is over at 9 p.m. Assuming we finish on time tonight, but we'll see.
Oh, no pressure.
No pressure at all.
No pressure.
We have a great show tonight, though. We really do. They decided to barrage us with content all at once.
Before you called it tremendous, now it's just great. I don't know.
I think it's the same thing. Isn't it a synonym?
All right. I think they're two different adjectives. I think they're two varying degrees of intensity, those adjectives. But okay, fair enough. We won't quibble. We won't quibble over it.
We've got rogue reactions to Obi Wan Kenobi, Stranger Things 4, and Top Gun Maverick. We've got We unearthed our interview with Paul Reiser. We had done an interview with him a few years ago, right before Stranger Things 2. And believe it or not,
Yeah, we had
all
to
the
hire
content.
an entire archaeological team to unearth that. Yeah.
Yeah, I had to go through my iTunes. It was tough.
Yeah.
It was back before Zoom, though. This is pre-Zoom days, so it's an audio interview that we had to put together some video for.
Wow.
It's pretty
Wow.
exciting,
We've come
though.
a long way. We've come a long
But it's
way.
great because it kind of goes into how he became affiliated with the show to begin with. They're talking about 80s nostalgia, the Duffer Brothers, gives us a little inside look at the show, which is pretty awesome too. So we got all that. But first we're gonna start, and we're not even gonna go to break. We're just gonna go right in because it's 5 minutes into the show. There was some news that dropped last night. Joe Quesada up and decided he was done. He was done with Marvel Comics, and this is his official statement. He launched it on Twitter and Instagram and all that fun stuff. He titled it, "And now for something different." May 31st, 2022. Got a sec? I have something I'd like to share with you. When I first jumped into the world of comics, my goal was to create my own characters, stories, and universes. Then one day, Marvel made me an offer that changed the trajectory of my life. But lately, I find myself thinking more and more of my favorite stanza from T.S. Eliot's Little Gidding. We should not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and know the place for the first time. That is why it's both exciting and bittersweet that after discussions with both my family and my family at Marvel, after 2+ decades, hasn't really been that long, the time has come for me to move on. As you can imagine, my love for the company, its characters, and all my coworkers runs deep, but I have an exciting new chapter that's about to begin, so the time feels right. He goes on to thank all of his coworkers, the people in the business. He goes to thank the fans, obviously, and he definitely mentions, though, that he's not done. This doesn't mean you're getting rid of me that easily. I won't ever be too far away, cheering my Marvel family on and contributing from time to time, including something I'm thrilled about for later this year. I also have several insanely cool projects of my own you'll be hearing about in the coming months, including a short indie film I'm writing and directing. Stay tuned. So all in all, it sounds, I mean, it was definitely, abrupt because it was, today. It was posted last night, and his last day is today. So, no going away cake for him, or anything to that extent. But you were very suspicious of this announcement, right?
Look, it seems to smack to me of the fact that this is not an amicable parting. I will not say he was fired.
Yeah,
I won't out and out say that, but it's not. It doesn't seem like it's an amicable part. When a head of a company leaves the company,
yeah,
that puts the company in jeopardy. That's tremendous jeopardy for the company.
Yeah.
Public opinion goes down. If the company is public, the stock is, it's gonna bottom up. So usually what happens because this happens all the time, the CFOs and CEOs or whatever, they decide I'm moving on, whatever tremendous personality is at the head of whatever company. I'm decided I'm moving on, blah, blah, blah. Usually if it's an amicable moving on, if it's just I'm going to go pursue new exploitations, I'm going to go build a house on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
They will establish a grace period, a month or so that they could get the new CFO up to snuff or CEO up to snuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so that everybody, the market, to all this stuff has a chance to cool down to the idea of this big shakeup, this industry shakeup.
Yeah.
If he drops a letter on Sunday that, hey, by the way, my last day is Monday, I think that's indicative of something.
Again, that suggests that the company had no awareness that this was happening, right? Is this something where he literally? I mean, is this one of the things where Marvel's finding out on Instagram?
Why would he do that to his Marvel family,
right?
"Quote unquote" Marvel family, if there wasn't some kind of bad blood connected with it?
You know what? I wonder if it's more or less. I think he even says it with his Marvel family. There was internal discussions, so there was some sort of. Now, in the world of sports, this generally means that there was some sort of contract talks, possibly, and they didn't quite go the way either, one party wanted them to. And so, I don't know the status of his contract. I don't know the status of, what his terms were, whether he was looking for a raise and didn't get it. The other thing you could suggest, though, is that one could suggest is that he has some stuff brewing. So it might not necessarily be it might not be as dire a situation in terms of this is a sinking ship. I got to get out of here kind of deal. Like something's going wrong with
Hold
Marvel.
on. I never said any of that
I know you
stuff.
didn't. No, I didn't. I know you didn't. I'm saying that. I'm
Yeah, I
saying
know.
that there's.
I would like to go on record saying that
Okay.
I
No,
never
yeah, yeah.
said anything like that.
Right.
Now the I hear what you're saying, but you're still leaving the company in a lurch. You don't usually do that. That's not usually good business if you've been with a company for 20 years and you're still in good faith with that company.
Yeah.
You don't
Well,
just
that's my
like, hey,
point. Maybe they
tomorrow's
have
my
a plan
last
for
day.
this, though.
Huh?
Maybe they have a plan for this. Maybe they, like I said, maybe they don't have a plan. Maybe it's something that came up in the last, 2 weeks. But it's not necessarily something that they're, obviously they're going to have to, fill his vacancy. But I mean, that being said, it's, uh, you know, the comic book wing of Marvel is not necessarily, I don't want to say it's not as important. It's not the moneymaker for them. It's the studio, obviously. And so perhaps their big thing is that, no one person is going to define them as a company, especially with, Obi Wan doing so well and Moon Knight doing well from a viewership standpoint. All the money is really in their Disney Plus line right now, and the box office. So the question, of course, is now I am scrolling through their Twitter. There's no mention of, there's no retweet from Joe Quesada. There's no thank you, Joe. There's no nothing. So you could be onto something. I mean, you could be something where something came up from him, from his side of things, that, he did kind of just spring on them. Maybe this is something, out of left field. But I feel like some sort of internal discussions had to have been taking place for them.
Well, oh boy. Okay.
That's my opinion on it. It's my point. I'm not. I think they were, unless they're going to announce their next CEO though, or their next editor in chief, immediately.
Here's the thing. I'll say it again. I'm saying it's not. It doesn't. It whatever they've done. It doesn't say amicable to me. That's my point. I'm not saying that no one has discussed this beyond this or that. I've certainly never said that the Marvel was a sinking ship or that it wasn't the money maker.
I never said you did.
I know I'm going on record as to say that I didn't say it, right? So what I'm saying is it doesn't say amicable to me. That's what I've been saying from the beginning.
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe all those other things are possible, and definitely, hopefully, he's going. I'm sure he'll land on his feet. He's been there for 20 years, and he was an industry giant before he became, the head of corporate.
Yeah.
For Marvel, so he'll be fine, and hopefully, he's got a lot of great projects coming up.
Yeah.
I'm just
what I was saying before, though, the reason I was bring up the sinking ship argument, because there's usually two ways about it, right? There's two ways of, like when we worked at Wizard, we knew it was like a sinking ship, or at least I knew. Like we saw the writing on the wall. People were getting fired left and right. Things were bad were happening. You kind of had. I know I had a lot of talks with other employees, and we were like, we got to do something. We got to plan our next step here, or I definitely had a couple discussions with folks, about the condition of the company, right? To where you're planning your next move, you're planning your exit strategy before you get exited. There's that, or I've been at companies before where company was fine, company was doing well. It was just something, new opportunities came up, better opportunities came up. After 20 years at the same company, there was, there must be a feeling of that too. So I'm leaning that obviously I think it was more for him in that direction. It was more that there's opportunities for him that are coming up that I think he just wants to take advantage of.
Here's where the disconnect keeps coming in.
Yeah.
I'm not speculating as to why he's leaving.
I am.
I know. But I'm not, I'm not speculating as to why he's leaving or what his leaving is for. I'm saying his leaving does not sound amicable. I'm saying the nature of his leaving the nature of how he's leaving.
That something fishy's going on behind the scenes.
That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that he doesn't have anything planned, or that, that this is, it could be, it could be certainly something finally came up that, that broke through that he wanted to do for the, for his whole life, or he wanted to join a movie studio or something like that. And this was his opportunity to make a non-lateral move to someplace else. I'm not saying that that's not what he's doing. I'm just saying it ain't sweet nothings between he and Marvel. In the doing of it.
I think that's fair. I think that's I think that's
and
fair...
it could lead, the answer could be that he was fired.
Yeah.
Now the other answer is that he's just leaving, but I think either way, I think there's no lost love between the two entities. It seems like
it's possible. It's very possible, because again, I don't see any official statement from Marvel on the fact, and you're right. I mean, it is cut out, a day later. Basically, peace, I'm out. I have a feeling we're going to get some announcements from his camp soon.
There'll be a ton of, and there'll probably be a lot of conflicting reports.
Sure.
As to the nature of this and that. So who knows if we're ever going to get to the bottom of what really is going on. But all I'm saying is,
we'll have to get him on the show.
Yeah, we'll do that.
He won't be
forthcoming with us, but I mean, we'll add to
tough questions.
We'll add to the noise. We'll add to the hysteria.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that would be I think you're right. I don't think we will truly know, but we will hear. But I think there are going to be announcements forthcoming from his camp. I feel like there's going to be one of those, like, hey, I couldn't talk about it because I was still working at this other company, but now I'm the head of development at such and such production company. I think this is going to be amazing. They're going to make an Ash. Remember Ash?
To DC, maybe.
Do you think that would? Oof.
Maybe. I mean, I'm sure he'll pop up someplace amazing.
See, now that would definitely lend toward your theory if that's what ended up happening, like the less than amicable parting of ways. I feel like that.
Listen. Not a stretch. The conventional wisdom is that head of company leaves, company is in the lurch. A lot of bad things happen to the company. The company has to do a lot of things to scramble, to make a lot of shifts and quick decisions. Quick corporate and company decisions in order to stay ahead of the tidal wave of social media backlash and whatever comes down the pike with Wall Street and the stock market and whatever. And then a lot of speculations. A lot of people like us come out of nowhere and say, I think that there's a kaiju in there, and the kaiju is making all the decisions in Marvel from now on. I mean, whatever. So I think if you do it this way and you just cut the head off the snake, which is basically what Joe Quesada did, in a public bloodletting right in front of everybody, that he pulled his golden parachute and jumped at a press conference. I think there's something up.
Yeah. I think I think you could be correct. But we will we'll wait and see what happens as the story develops. But I thought that was pretty bold news to come straight before our podcast. All right. Everyone just decided to put content out now.
Right?
Even Joe Quesada is like, F this. You got 3 things you want to talk about? I'll give you a 4th thing.
Yeah. I'm helping you guys out here. I'm tired.
So when we come back, we are going to react. We reacted to Joe Quesada. We are going to react to all the good content that came out. Obi Wan, Stranger Things 4, and Top Gun Maverick when we return. Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast. We are the frequency for all things pop culture, and boy, did a lot of stuff come out all at once. We talked about the Joe Quesada leaving Marvel, but that's just news. This is actual content. Now, when we would do this show, we've been doing the show for 6 years or so together, Hassan and I. We would always discuss that the everyday. I always likened our show to sports radio, right? So most of the time, you talk about the trade rumors, you talk about what a team has to do to get better, all the side discussions. But then again, you'd have actual playoff games or games and matches where you could actually talk about sports, the actual sports of things. So this is our sports. We've now waded through the content delays of 2020 and 2021, and now it seems like everything is just a deluge. And we had three things drop all at once, which means we're going to do this spoiler free. We are going to react, not review. We're just going to chat a little bit. We're going to chat a little bit about all three things. Full disclosure, it's Memorial Day weekend. I couldn't go see Top Gun Maverick. Didn't get out. Went away for the weekend. So I think we're going to start with that. And I just want to get your reaction, your spoiler-free reaction, Hassan, to Top Gun Maverick. I'm going to be seeing it on Friday. I'm very excited. We'll do a full review next week. What's your initial reaction?
I enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought
you were going to go into it, by the way. You were hearing good things, and then you were very upset about that, right?
Well, yeah, because you got your expectations are high, but I didn't really have high expectations for it. In its own way. I really am rarely disappointed by a Tom Cruise movie. The guy knows how to put on a spectacle.
Yeah.
So, I didn't have a problem with that. I know that if he's going to do another Top Gun movie that, especially 36 years after the first one, that script's probably pretty tight,
Yeah.
It's just a matter of whether the public is ready to digest something like that or not.
Yeah.
And apparently they are. There are a lot of people were waiting for it. Apparently a lot of people were clamoring for it. So I thought it's a very average movie. It's very, I got a mission for you guys. Oh, you guys can't do a mission. Oh, we'll find a way to get the mission done. That's basically the whole film.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, Rocky wins, so it is what it is in its own way. There's some heartache, and there's some oohs and ahs, and there's some sad moments, and there's a lot of explosions and a lot of people get killed.
Well, this is my question to you. Wait. So this is my question to you. You probably didn't see Top Gun in the theaters, did you?
The original, no, I did not.
I didn't either. Obviously,
I was old enough to have been taken to the theater to see it. I think it came out in '84.
Yeah.
And in '84, I was 12, either 11 or 12. So, I could have seen it, but I saw it on VHS. Everybody remember VHS?
I saw it on cable.
Do you remember VHS?
Yes.
I want to know if the kids remember VHS.
Of course they do. They just watched Stranger Things 4.
Yeah.
They're like, what are those things? Oh yeah, it's VHS. What are cassette tapes? What's a Walkman? Ironically, in Stranger Things 4, there's that one scene where she's like, "You have a Tom Cruise poster," and I'm like, he looks exactly the same. he looks a little weathered around the eyes, but
the man is 60 years old. He's 60 years old.
Yeah,
he's
the good 60. He's, I gotta be honest with you.
There's no except for Ming-Na Wen, who is also 60.
Yeah.
There's no other 60-year-old like these two.
He looks like what 40-year-olds looked like in 1986.
Yeah, he looks younger than Tom Skerritt.
Yeah.
And Tom Skerritt was about 60 years old.
Yeah.
When he did Top Gun, when he did the original Top Gun. He might have been younger than that, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
So
I got to tell you, I'm a big doubter of Scientology. Huge. Very big skeptic, very big all that stuff. But man, whatever they're doing over there, they got that going, man. He's got that thing. He's been tapping into the
Hold on. Aaron, what do you mean only 58? That's 60. Round up.
Producer Aaron just dropped out that Ming-Na Wen is only 58. That is true.
Okay, Tom Cruise is only 59. It's a year apart, but basically they're both 60.
Yeah.
Why is she? Hey,
they're essentially 60. So wait, who would you say looks better actually? Tom Cruise at 60 or Ming-Na Wen at 58?
I'm not doing that.
Two
different. That's two different schools of thought right there.
Yeah.
I think they both look fantastic.
Yeah.
I still buy him as an action hero. I still buy him in Mission Impossible, doing all that stuff. I mean, he doesn't look like you don't look at him and see a 59-year-old man.
No.
You look at Harrison Ford and you're like, yeah, that guy's getting up there,
Yeah.
But you don't look at Tom Cruise and say like he's on his last legs. These are his last action movies. So it is what it is. I don't know what he's doing. Deals
Harrison
with the
Ford
devil,
is a known smoker,
drinking virgin's blood, whatever he's doing. But
Harrison Ford was always a smoker. He was a cigarette smoker. I think that's a huge thing. I think Tom Cruise is very straight edge when it comes to these things. So these are all just little tips and things you guys can do if you want to look like that when you're 60. Plus, be multimillionaires and have trainers and nutritionists and chefs that can just cook you.
Tom Cruise is a vampire. He kills people and drinks their
blood. I think that is. But was it amicable between?
Yes, Harrison Ford is 79. Is it amicable?
Is it amicable between the people he's drinking the blood from?
It depends on when they get noticed that their blood's going to be drank. That's how you determine whether it's amicable or not.
People are going to be like, I don't get the joke. Watch the whole episode. We're live every Wednesday.
That's not my fault. I don't have to provide context.
All right.
that's above my pay grade.
Top Gun Maverick, we're going to dive into next week. I'll have seen it by then. We'll do a full-on Rogue review of it. This will give people more of a chance to see it too, because my goodness, so much to do. There was Memorial Day weekend in the States. There was,
I saw Top Gun. Yeah. I saw Obi Wan. Mm-hmm. I saw Stranger Things, and I still went away for the weekend. So I don't know what you're talking about. I really don't know what you're talking about.
I'll reserve my judgment for the single and no children camp in that side.
I don't know about single, but yeah, no children. Ooh, definitely.
Wait a minute. I got a rogue reaction to that. What's going on there? Whoa. Warning, spoilers is right. Hassan just spoiled it. Oh, shifting. We're going to shift the direction of this show now.
Nah, whatever.
What's her name? What does she
do? No.
Oh, boy. Oh, man. Aaron, we got our topic for next week. Full-on rogue review.
Okay.
Of Hassan's dating.
Yeah, that's definitely a way to clear out the audience right there.
I think I'm going to go over under. We would gain. Heck yeah, we do. See, we would totally gain. Are you kidding me? Do you know how many? Oh my God. I can't believe you're saving this. You were withholding this information, but it's out now.
I'm going to tell anybody. Here's my information.
It's out now. All right. We'll
this is not social media. I don't gotta click a box, to let everybody know what's going on.
Well, all right. Either way, that was our Top Gun reaction. We'll do a full-on review next week. Now this is my question for the next two topics, for the next two content pieces, I should say. I have one I'm more excited about than the other, and I feel like it almost speaks to I don't want to say the state of, because I think both pieces of content are solid pieces of content. I think both from an art perspective, from a story perspective, are very solid, and I think both universes are very solid. But there's one that I was way more excited to watch, and I'm enjoying more, not because, again, both good, but I'm enjoying more, and I think it says something. Would you pander to guess? No, pander's not the word. Would you gander? Pander? Would you care to guess which one I'm more excited about?
Occam's razor, Dolce.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that. Okay, when you're thinking of words to use and adjectives.
Wager a guess. That's a good one.
See, there's and all things being equal, the simplest solution is the best. Would you care to guess is perfectly fine.
Yes. Would you wager to guess?
Yeah.
Which one I'm actually more excited about? Which universe I'm actually more excited about?
If you're thinking it's going to be like kind of, momentous revelation about which is bigger and which is not bigger as pertains to what your perspective is
to me, just to me.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm thinking Stranger Things.
You are correct, sir.
Of course, I know.
You are correct.
Because it's like too easy. It's too obvious an answer to say Star Wars.
Yeah.
And also, we're back in prequel era stuff, man. Which has been, I don't know if you've been paying attention, which has been all the rave, man. The prequel fans are all over the place praising Obi Wan television show, the Obi Wan extravaganza that's been going on.
Well, there's
And
two reasons for it.
You're not a prequel fan, so
No.
it will be admitting defeat for you to say that you're really into this Obi Wan thing. So
No,
you're gonna
I
go
actually
Stranger
disagree.
Things.
Well, there's two reasons for this as well, right? So there's prequel love because people who grew up, like the young kids who grew up, they loved the prequels, and that's been
Heck
known
yeah.
that it took a while because they were all kids when they watched it, and then so that was their
Yeah,
Star
and then
Wars.
they got on social media and realized that the adults are being hose bags about the whole thing,
No,
and
I
they
mean they're
straightened
accurate
all
and
the
correct
adults
about
out,
their assessment of it, but
and they
that's
fixed
okay.
all the
People
adults.
can like what they like, regardless of whether or
fixed
not
it.
they're correct in liking it. This is the
Nobody's
second.
incorrect in liking or disliking.
This is the
anything.
second part of it, though. This is the
Yeah.
second part of it, though. You then had the sequels trilogy that was so colossally bad that the prequels harkens back to a time of more innocence when Star Wars, even if it's not the best Star Wars, you could go in feeling you were at least watching Star Wars.
There we are again, though. The sequels are another generation Star Wars. So, it is there. It will, if tradition holds, find its own legs and have its own renaissance. And regardless what dinosaurs like ourselves are saying about it 5 to 6 to 10 years from now, they will have their own resurgence and they will be beloved.
The
Just
third
like
aspect to
just
this,
like the
though,
originals.
here's where Obi-Wan has a leg up as well too. I think it's almost unanimous, majority of people that I polled in terms of the prequels will always say the same thing, including what I say. Ewan McGregor was the best part of those prequels. He was able to spew the George Lucas dialogue in a way that was not wooden. There was an actual. I mean, if again going back to the initial casting of Obi-Wan, Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan was universally praised. His performances were probably the best thing in those prequels. People, I haven't found anybody that said that he was very bad as Obi-Wan or should not have been cast as Obi-Wan. I think a lot of people they have regret because they're like, wow, they had this casting down and they just didn't, if you're not a fan of the prequels and you didn't like those movies, you felt disappointed and let down because they had the right person in place, but they couldn't, to use the sports analogy, and they couldn't win the championship with them. They couldn't actually take the big one home. There's a feeling. What's
I don't
that?
see that analogy of not taking the big one home, depending on what the big one is. But like I said,
well, I mean, in terms of the prequel success, in terms of being good movies and not being good movies, again, it got the general consensus. Those movies got slammed when they came out, but Ewan McGregor was never slammed, nor should he have been. He was the best part of those original prequels.
Okay,
and
well,
so
what's the point you're making?
My point being is that why would anybody not then be excited about an Obi-Wan Kenobi series now based off of his character and based off of the casting that was so spot on? This is almost like a redemption shot. This is like, oh my goodness, thank goodness we get an Obi-Wan that now we get to actually see him as we might have wanted to have seen him 20 years ago. We might get to see a Star Wars story revolve around him that ultimately we don't think lived up to the expectation 20 years ago. And so my point being is anybody who liked the prequels, of course they're going to be excited to see Obi-Wan continue. Anybody who didn't like the prequels, I think is excited because they think this is the chance to redeem what was not deemed worthy.
Obviously not, though.
Why not?
Because you just admitted that you're more excited about Stranger Things than Obi-Wan. So
no, I was more excited
with the original
it's a universe,
narrative.
but I asked which universe am I more excited about? That was the question.
I know,
right?
And you're more excited about Stranger Things.
Yes, but the reason I say that, so a couple things, and I'll lean towards Star Wars because then we can ease into our Stranger Things reaction. The thing about the Star Wars universe right now is there's something about there's a quarry by my house, right? And there's this quarry. I mean, I grew up with it, so I grew up in the same town for the most part. I mean, I've ventured out and about, and I've been many, many places, but ultimately, I settled back into my own hometown. When I grew up, there was a lot of mountain there, and it was a big mountain. And now, 30 some odd years later, that mountain is getting very hollow. We often joke, we're like, man, I don't know how much they can mine from this mountain anymore before this thing is just like, how much more rock can they get out of this? That's my take on the Star Wars universe right now. Not that they can't keep mining stuff, not that they can't keep delivering new storylines, but I almost wonder how much does it take away from the original trilogy, from anything good that you might have liked afterwards that has come after it, to the point where it waters it down and just becomes, almost, like a hollow mountain at this point. So it's not an Obi Wan Kenobi comment specifically, because like I said, I was excited for this show, and I thought, it was a very entertaining show. But for the universe as a whole, every new series they announce, I kind of go, oh, I get very nervous. I get very nervous about it because you just don't know what you're getting. Are you getting sequel trilogy output? Or are you getting Mandalorian? Or in some cases where you're getting
hopefully
perfectly
both.
acceptable things like Boba Fett.
Hopefully you'll get all three.
No, I don't want sequel trilogy stuff. I want things that are good.
Yeah, but I mean, nobody cares what you want. We're not talking about what you want.
I care about what I want. So that's where it comes.
Why would you get nervous about something? Like, I don't understand. That's what I don't get about this modern era of consumerism. Like either it's good or it's bad. Like you take a bite of you take a bite of chicken, and it's either cooked correctly or it's undercooked or overcooked, right? And you're like, okay, I need to get the chef on the job to get me a better cooked chicken, or I'm never eating here again. But that's the thing.
I don't want to come down to, I don't want to eat here ever again. That's exactly, you summed it up. Like, why would I want to not be able to enjoy new Star Wars content?
But here's the thing: if something causes you not to want to consume product anymore, then why would you be regretful that you can't consume that product anymore because a product is subpar as far as you're concerned? So it's like you sit there and like, oh man, they're gonna make me stop watching this because the stuff is so bad. But it's like, well, if the stuff was good, I'd want to watch it. Since I don't want to watch it, it means the stuff is bad. So then you move on.
Yeah, but that sucks. Plain and simple, right? Doesn't that suck? Like, don't you want to keep...
I think it sucks when you want something good and it turns into something bad. But I think being nervous about it, I think that's I would consider that part of the problem, the modern problem with consumerism. And either you consume something that's useful to you, or you consume something that's useless to you.
Yeah.
Right. I know what I'm watching when I watch Roadhouse. Right.
Yeah.
It ain't Shakespeare. I'm not going to compare Roadhouse to the King's Speech and be like, why can't this be of a caliber of acting that I have come to
So do you consider Star Wars the King's Speech right now, or Roadhouse?
I'm making an analogy specifically to not mention Star Wars or any of the properties that we're talking about.
Yeah, but that's a very profound analogy.
Star Wars is Star Wars, though. Like Star Wars is in a class by itself. To compare Star Wars to, say, something like Endgame or Infinity War is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
Because it is its own thing. But that's what a lot of people are doing. I was like, oh, this was so much. I remember one of the biggest complaints about the Phantom Menace when it first came out. Not so much a stiff dialogue, it wasn't as good as The Matrix. It's like, well, okay, but did you enjoy it? Well, yeah, but I didn't have as much fun as I had with The Matrix. Okay, but does that make it bad? Or does that make it a different experience? So, I mean, if you're talking to knuckleheads like that who don't really know how to parse things, then you dismiss that and you move on. You feel bad for them, and and their defective cerebral cortex, and then you just move on.
I don't know. I don't do it that way. That's fine that you do it. That's fine. But I definitely look at it.
But you're always asking me questions, and then you're questioning my answers, even though I look at things way different. So I know that's not me. That's you.
I understand. I'm saying that's your way of looking at it. I understand it. I just personally, like I said, I get nervous for the universe as a whole. Here's the thing. Here's what I would say though. There's pieces of Obi Wan though too, that kind of support my point about the future of this universe and getting nervous about the future of the universe, because on the one end, and this is spoiler-ish, but we're not this is spoiler-ish, but it's not something that I think will ultimately cause anybody harm for me to say, right? The Leia plotline that we do, right, and that we are introduced to in the first 2 episodes. On the one end, I'm sitting there going, hey, that's actually pretty cool because we don't know anything about Leia as a child. We assume because of the journey is told through Luke's point of view in New Hope, that we kind of know everything that's happening, that in it, basically Luke didn't live a great life, or I don't want to use the word great, but an exciting life. He didn't do things, right?
Yeah.
We don't know anything about Leia, so that's kind of cool. Like, hey, we definitely, we know these things. But we know these things during watching New Hope, and then we know these things now. Hey, this is great. We get to see Leia. She's a little girl. We get to explore her universe. So part of me is like, hey, this is cool, very cool stuff. The other part of me is like, okay, now where does this fit in? How is it that she met him when she's 10 years old, and then at the same time, is she going to forget him now? Like, she has the mission. She has the the message to Obi Wan. I mean, there's the infamous already. There's the infamous.
Nothing in the message that indicates that she doesn't know who he is.
You would think in the message that she says to him, like, just like you did when you saved me when I was 10 years old.
But
you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, but that doesn't. Sometimes if she's sending a formal message, there's nothing in that message that contradicts what's going on so far. If you're saying that that message should now be more personable, that's kind of a headcanon thing. I mean, if you're saying that she actually said, hey, we've never met, but I'm here to pick you up, for my dad, then yeah, that's a plot hole. But nothing like that's been said. So it's not egregious.
Yeah. No, I mean, you can explain it away, and I can. I think it's plausible to explain it away. It's the same thing when, like I said, Obi Wan says, I don't recall owning 2 droids. And meanwhile, like Darth Vader, same thing, like has no recollection of having created
C-3PO but Jedi don't own anything. And Darth Vader never says he doesn't have any recollection of
No, I know. Darth
Vader no longer believes that he's Anakin Skywalker. So he's purged that.
Again,
he's purged all those ties.
These are all plausible explanations.
Of course.
There is a fine line though to when you keep mining something that eventually it becomes hollow mountain.
I get it, but like here's the conventional wisdom would have said, "Oh, you're going to make a Top Gun sequel 36 years after the original? That's going to be a disaster." And it wasn't. People were saying that. Oh, this one's going to flop. This is probably going to be a big flop. Turned out to be his biggest opening ever. Yes. Some say, which I do not agree with, some say it surpassed the first one, which it didn't. Tony Scott's directing is exceptional in that first film. So, I'm not in that camp. Krasinski's a very competent director. Yeah, but he's not an auteur like Tony Scott. But anyway, look, and they're saying the same thing about Avatar. We'll find out 10 years later. We'll find out. I mean, look, if these things can come out and become huge hits and find out that there's a market for it and people are like, well, when's Top Gun 3 coming out or whatever, to a guy who's 60 years old, then all things are possible. It all depends on the execution, just like everything else.
Agreed. It always does, but that doesn't mean I can't be nervous for a specific universe.
I didn't say you can't be. I just don't understand being nervous about it. I'm not saying you can or can't do anything. Yeah, I know. Just like you don't understand why I could like the prequels. I don't get it. I just don't get being nervous about it. Like it's either going to be good.
That's probably the most fair point you've made.
It's either going to be good or it ain't going to be good. That's all there is. Why complicate your experience with worry? Of things that you have no control over.
You can't control your feelings either. I mean, you either have, you know what I mean? These are gut reactions.
That's not true. You can control your feelings. You can.
We're not Jedi.
No, I'm not. Oh Lord, never mind. Never mind.
What was your
you stay away from psychology, and we'll all be safe.
What was your big reaction to the first 2 episodes? I know there's a third episode as well too. What was your initial?
I enjoyed it. I am sick and tired of the format, the weekly format, where you don't get a full story, no matter how long it is. You don't get a 3-act structure where it's like this, that, and the other, and it ends right on a note where like, all right, I really wish this was going on, but I am satisfied with what I got. I got enough and we don't get that kind of content anymore.
Yeah.
So like, look, it's so far so good. I enjoy it. I have enjoyed it. It's got its flaws. It's got its little, it's got its little quirks.
Yeah.
But I will reserve my full judgment for when I can see the entire thing together. But so far so good.
Yeah, I like I said, with the exception of that one question, in terms of Leia's past, there's nothing that made me kind of, do any kind of mental gymnastics or mental hopscotch around anything that was presented. So I was pretty excited.
I should say they probably won't be. I mean, the people behind it now.
Yeah.
They know that their audience is ravenous for that kind of stuff. So
yeah.
The
one thing I did
audience
text
is
you
always
too.
looking for gotchas. They're always trying to get them on gotchas.
Yeah.
And a lot of times those gotchas aren't real.
Yeah. The one thing I did text you though over the weekend was like, holy crap, that's Flea.
Yeah.
That was amazing. I was like, that can't be Flea.
A lot of
Flea,
people.
for anybody who's, I guess, under 25 years old, is one of the most amazing bass players, possibly the most
Anybody who
amazing
doesn't know
who
Flea
time.
Is doesn't deserve to know who Flea is at this point. I don't care.
From the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
F the young
and
people.
he has dabbled in acting before.
He's
most notably the 1993 film The Chase.
Yeah, The Chase, or Back to the Future, parts 2 and 3. He plays Needles. Remember Needles?
Oh, I didn't know he was in Back to the Future 2 and 3.
Yeah, he was the guy who called him and he got fired by Fujisi-san.
Holy cow.
And then also at the very
end, I had to get my
VHS
tape out.
At the very end in Back to the Future Part 3, they were going to race, and he decided not to race him. That's the end of his cowardly arc, his chicken arc. And because he didn't race him, he didn't crash into the car, and thus he didn't break his hand. So he could still go on to be a rock star because it's still 1985 and people still care about guitar players in 1985. You didn't get that? You didn't know that was Flea?
I didn't know that was Flea.
That was Flea. And he's also in Point Break.
I think probably
no, that was it. No, Anthony Kiedis is in Point Break. Flea is not in Point Break.
But see, that's the thing, though. I think Back to the Future, that was pre like me being coherent about music, so that might be why it didn't resonate with me. The same way The Chase was 1993, so that's I'm right in. Which I actually didn't even see until 95.
Back to the Future was 1989 and 1990. It's not that much of a departure from 1993.
Dude, I'm either from 93, I'm a teenager. 1990, I'm not even a 10-year-old at that point yet. My birthday's very late, remember? Because we have the same birthday minus a day. So it spans a from a growth and development standpoint, that's a huge swing. 10-year-old to a 13-year-old, or even 14-year-olds. When I actually finally watched The Chase, I didn't watch The Chase when it first came out. I saw it on Comedy Central. So I'm just saying that's a huge developmental swing in such a short period of time, to where at most I might have been listening to my parents' records to going in. So all right, final show on the docket, final piece of content, which we'll get into the whole content versus art debate another time as well too. I keep teasing that. We'll do that at some point.
Hold on, I'll tell you one thing that blows your mind.
What's that?
Do you know the movie Lethal Weapon?
Yes.
Are you aware of the? Do you remember the scene on the tree lot where Riggs
is really Flea?
Huh? No, where Riggs is doing the drug deal, and the drug dealer goes wrong, and he shoots 3 of them, and the one guy holds him hostage.
Okay.
That is Anthony Kiedis' father.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That does blow my mind, actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the kind of useless trivia you've been holding on to for many years.
I got tons of it.
You're just like one day, this is going to make...
When it comes up, when it's relevant.
This is going to happen. I am going to have this moment where I can break this out.
All right.
This was it. This was it.
Yeah, I got tons of. I'm waiting for all my moments. I'm picking all my moments.
Oh, man. Epic. All right.
That is what it is.
last thing on the docket, and I got to tell you, it's perfect segue to what I was going to talk about.
Oh, the perfect segue. Something we all spend our entire lives looking for. Go ahead.
Stranger Things 4.
Yeah.
First of all, I was thinking of you the entire time. I was thinking of you when I first clicked on, like, how long is this episode?
I know what this is about.
How long is this episode? Wow. Okay, it's an hour and 17 minutes was the first episode. Every single episode, I think minus one, which may be an hour on the dot, because then when I clicked on it, I think I was already like a minute or two in, and it was like 59 or 58 minutes to go. So I'm like, I don't have the official runtime, but I believe it is exactly an hour. Every single episode is a mini movie that is at least an hour long, most of them clocking in at an hour and 15 or beyond.
Yes, thankfully.
7 episodes in part 1. So it's essentially 14 episodes. And I'm thinking to myself, Hassan has been complaining for years that streaming has robbed us of more content. And now we finally, how many episodes is part 2 now? I think it's 3, right?
Part 2 is only 2 episodes.
2 episodes. So you figure they're going to be an hour and a 15 too. So that's another 4
episodes. Chapter 8.
Yeah.
Episode 8 is going to be an hour and a half, and episode 9, I think, is 2 hours. Or two and a half
that
hours.
Is
I mean, it's long.
That's as close to the 22 to 24 episode runs we used to get on broadcast TV. So first of all, I was like, Hassan's got to be cheering here because of how much content Stranger Things has managed.
No, I was very happy with it. I was extremely happy with the content. It was a lot of story to tell. Yeah. And they had a lot of room to tell it. Yep. And they also got to the point really quickly.
Yes.
As opposed to like dragging us along. So,
yes.
You know,
there was a couple sequences I might have been able, I skipped like the 10 second ahead, but not because I felt I had to. Like I understand like they're horror movie tropes, you know, where they're building suspense. And I was just like, well, I got to get through some of this so I can talk about it with Hassan. And so, but if I didn't, I would have, you know, there was never, like you said, there was never a point, like there was room to breathe, but it got to the point, you know, very fast with a lot of these things. So I agree with that.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I mean, look, and also, the part 2 is a month away. You know, it's not 6 months away or like they did with Ozark.
Yes.
Or you know, it's like, okay, like I don't know why you split it up. I guess it's a compromise for not doing it weekly, so you can keep the engagement going. Good for you, but you know, it's at least it's not something that I can't stand on my head for the duration while waiting for it. You know,
well, that's the other thought I was thinking though as I'm watching this. Netflix is so missing out by not doing this in a weekly format. This Stranger Things 4. You're going to capture this week, obviously. You're going to capture you're going to spill into some of next week, but you're going to essentially, these magnificent episodes could have been spaced out weekly or in chunks so that you could ruminate on these things. I mean, there's a lot of epic moments. And again, this is spoiler free, so I'm not going to go into any detail on them. There's some epic, you know, horror type moments. There is some, you know, deaths that are, I mean, just really cool. There's some really cool Sherlock, you know, whodunit kind of things. There's Pursuit. There's the dual storylines that will, you know, obviously converge in some way, shape, or form.
Quad storylines.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah. I kind of liken the, I guess 3 major storylines. The 11 storyline, you know, the Hawkins storyline, and then you know, the Hopper storyline, right? Is there
and Mike's storyline? Because they're in, I think they're in California.
No, but I'd say that's like the 11. That's all part of like the 11.
It's okay. Never mind.
No, I'm just saying.
There are 4 different factions going on. They break the posters up into 4 parts.
Yes,
because there's 4 different stories happening. But you see it any way you want to see it.
I just merged the 2. I think the two conveniently can be merged. But anyway, but I agree. It's fine. 3, 4. It doesn't matter. They are so missing out now to a point where even if you dropped, here's the thing. If it was just the first episode, that first episode was created for streaming. It was created to know that you had a second episode immediately because that first episode was all set up. to understand where the characters are now, what was going on around them, introducing new characters, the transition between, 11 and Will going off into California, all necessary setup and done very well. I'm not upset about it. However, if that had ended after episode 1 and I had to wait a week, I would have kind of groaned a little bit. So I would have dropped the first 2 episodes because I think that's essentially like dropping 4 episodes. And then I'd go to weekly after that. Because man, oh man, every single episode ends with I need to see the next one. And it ends in such a way that, from a conversation standpoint, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know how much longer Netflix can keep not doing the weekly thing, because it's just in their best interest to do it. And you can still binge it. You just have to wait. You just wait 7 weeks, 6 weeks, 5 weeks, and you can binge it if you want to binge it.
Okay.
You miss the best of both worlds that way.
Sure.
What do you guys think? Well, let me before I ask anybody else, out of the 3 that we got here, which one's your big takeaway? Which one's the one that is stamped as the number one? If it's a gold, silver, bronze Olympic, competition, who took the gold this weekend?
I would say Stranger Things took the gold.
Yeah.
But only because of the nature of the volume of content we got, and the fact that 90%, if not maybe 70 to 80% of that story is laid bare, so we know where we're going.
Yeah.
And we just don't have a wrap up. The Obi Wan is still developing. So once Obi Wan is finished, I might switch, depending on how the story comes together, I might switch that up.
All right. Let us know what you think. Chat in the comment box. Give us your feedback. We love hearing from you. Coming up next, we unearthed a 2017 interview I did with Paul Reiser right before Stranger Things 2, but it has so much. It was actually, I got to re-listen to it. Boy, what a great interview it was. He goes into his career. He goes into his role in Aliens. He talks about a Mad About You reboot. But then he also talks about how he became involved with Stranger Things to begin with. And so it's totally relevant to Stranger Things 4. So when we come back, we're going to do a Paul Reiser Rogue Spotlight.
All the fun stuff that people love to talk about. So thank you so much for joining us.
You bet.
Okay, so we're going to start off with, I think, first I want to start off and just say it's really, it's terrific. I mean, you're going through a renaissance. I mean, you're involved in so many exciting projects right now. What kind of spurred everything on? I mean, you've got Stranger Things 2, you've got Red Oaks.
Well, the real reason was I didn't want to do this interview and have nothing. So I thought if I plan ahead, knowing that we'd be talking this month, I said, let me, get things in motion so that I don't embarrass myself or bring down the quality of your little show.
That
was my real thing.
It's not hard.
It's kind of funny. It's the one real plan that everybody has in show business is that there's no plan, and a whole bunch of things that I've done seem to all be coming out around the same time, which is, again, not my planning. But the Stranger Things is that's a wild ride. That it's very rare that a show is that in demand or not of the moment. So it's pretty cool to watch and see. We had the premiere last week.
Yep.
And they just showed all around the world. There were these huge screenings and just fans, and like in every corner of the world. Oh my goodness, this is a big deal, and it's so well done. It's deserved. It's a really good show, but it's just there are a lot of great shows. Not very few pop like that one does. So that's been fun to be a part of for sure.
Yeah, it's definitely a phenomenon. There's no question about it. Were you a fan of the show prior to the Duffers coming to you with this role?
Yeah, I was, but it was so quick. I mean, the show, it was literally last summer, and the show, I think, came out on a Friday. And that Monday, my 16-year-old son said to me, "Have you heard of this new show?" And I had not. He said, "Oh, you should check it out. It's really great." And that same day, like within like a half an hour, I got a call that the Duffer Brothers wanted to meet me, and my agent said, "Have you ever heard of this brand new show?" I said, "Of course I have. I have my finger on the pulse of America, man." And so luckily I did know about it. And they said, "Well, I want to meet you tomorrow." I went, "Okay." So literally I hung up and I watched the first couple of episodes, and I was hooked. I thought, wow, it was clearly, when somebody is just firing on all cylinders, you can tell.
Yeah.
You can tell a good director. You can tell a good writer right up front. And from the get-go, that's just like, oh, this is good. It's very specific, and whatever decisions they've made, they have locked into it. And it was really good. So when I met with them, I was already a fan, and but it was so early on the curve. It was literally the first week that it had come out.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And shortly thereafter, I sat and watched them all, and it was great, And this year, so they had a very vague. They didn't tell me much about my character. They said, "We just have this idea that you're this doctor, and we don't know if he's good or he's bad." And I said, "Do you know?" He said, "We're not sure." So I said, "All right, well," which is really fun to kind of play because you have to straddle. You don't quite know where he's going to land. And even watching it now, I haven't finished. I have like 2 episodes left. And I was thinking, if I watch this objectively, it's like they really delay as late as they can what this guy is. And a lot of the stories, a lot of the characters and storylines, they just keep moving along, but you don't have the answers. And that's just great storytelling.
Yeah, at the time of this interview, I'm midway through episode 5 of the new season. So
there you go.
So I'm definitely... I'm definitely straddling right along with you. I think, it's definitely much more character-driven versus event-driven, which was like the first season was a big event. So very exciting to see kind of where it's all headed. And
they've sort of done the best of both worlds because season 2 is a lot of events coming that you haven't seen yet.
Yeah.
And so they're definitely dramatic events. But what makes it stand out, and I think the reason people are tuning in, is the characters, and there's a beautiful character stuff going on with the kids, and everybody has sort of evolved, and it's a year later, and they're more mature, and they're going through different stuff. So they have really written that beautifully. But it's funny, there's any number of things you could watch if you just want to watch scary, if you want to watch things explode, or you want to watch creatures. But ultimately, what people tune in for is is the characters and the stories. So they have really got all their bases covered.
Yeah, absolutely. My co-host is a huge Aliens fan, and I can't help but see the influence of this character from your character in Aliens. So
yeah, and they're sort of unabashed in their influence. They're big fans of that movie and of Jim Cameron and a whole bunch of other movies too. They have a really deep and wide breadth of movies. When they met me, when I asked, I said, like, how do you guys even know me? They're half my age, and they said, well, and I assumed it was Aliens. And they said, well, when we were kids, our father really turned us on to Diner. I went, wow, that's very different. You don't really see that, although there is. They said we're putting in a Diner reference here that is kind of subtle. And I read the script and went, yeah, I don't even see it. I don't get it. That's how subtle it is.
Yeah.
But it's funny because people have caught it, and it's kind of a nice little cookie they tossed in there.
That's neat little Easter egg.
Sure.
I have to you have to take a step back into the 80s for me and talk to me about your Aliens role real briefly. How did you end up getting the audition for that? How did you end up getting that job? At that point you were known as a stand-up comedian. So to kind of enter this more dramatic role in a sci-fi film, how did that kind of come about?
It came about in really the most boring conventional ways. I went in for an audition, and I think, if I'm remembering, I think at the time Jim Cameron had it in mind that he wanted to put as much of a deflect as much as he could and have somebody that you would assume, that you would least suspect of being bad. So maybe he started looking at comics. I don't remember that. I just remember I went in for an audition and left, and I didn't hear. When you don't hear in a week or two, you just go, I guess that didn't happen. And it was like 3 or 4 months later where I had forgotten about it. And went, And he said, "You got it." I said, "I got what?" And I said, "Oh, you're kidding." And he said, "Yeah." So they had, and I guess there was something that he wanted, or something that I was young enough, and perhaps, maybe because I was unknown and I didn't strike. At first glance, you don't think this guy's evil. That
Sure.
maybe they could delay the revelation. Although I got to say, audiences pretty quickly went, "That guy's no good." Like, we don't trust him. We don't trust the company. We don't trust anybody. Certainly not this guy.
Yeah. How do you juggle comedy and drama? I mean, again, your roots are stand up. And kind of coming in as comic relief, and then obviously Mad About You in the 90s. So what do you prefer? Do you prefer comedies? Do you prefer dramas? And how do you juggle the two?
It's not really a juggling thing. Certain things, the story and the piece that you're doing will dictate what it is that you're bringing. Like this is, Stranger Things and Aliens is certainly not comic. To me, I actually love the things that I write, and the things that I love watching are things that actually straddle both.
Yeah.
And Mad About You was certainly a comedy, but I think the pieces that people remember, as well as the comedies, is the dramatic moments or the emotional moments or the connections. So it's
sure.
And they work together. Sometimes to me, a great scene is when we have a touching moment, and then you can have a funny moment right in the middle of it, and they service each other.
Yeah.
You care more about the drama because you've enjoyed and you've laughed with these people, and sometimes you need a joke to sort of pop the moment. So they really can work together. I mean, it's certainly in Stranger Things, it's certainly not funny, but in the character, there's certainly, his job was to sort of put everybody at ease. That was really clear intention, and knowing full well that this town has been screwed by this government, by this project.
Sure.
So, as a character, I knew what I was coming into, and it's like, listen, I know you don't want to trust me, but I'm going to have to ask you to trust me. Usually, when somebody says trust me, it's because you're not supposed to trust them. I always love when Trump says, believe me. I went, well, why'd you say believe me? I would have believed you right up to the point you said believe me. Why did you assume I wouldn't believe you?
We kind of touched upon it a little bit, but, the 80s nostalgia aspect to the show, I mean, it's big everywhere. Even, another series you're involved with, Red Oaks, has this 80s nostalgia theme experience. What do you think is so fascinating about this decade that has got people kind of coming back to it?
I don't know that it is. I don't think there's anything particularly more interesting about the 80s and the 90s or the 70s or the 60s. I think what happens is filmmakers come of age in a certain time, whatever it is they were born, and they go back to their sweet spot. And so I think these guys were born in the 80s, so it wasn't really their time, but they grew up on those movies and felt an affinity to them. So that's where their creative sweet spot is. In Red Oaks, Greg Jacobs, who produced it and created the show and wrote it, he with his partner, but it came out of his life. He was in the 80s was working as a tennis pro.
Yeah.
Or at a country club, and he had all these stories, and he had worked with Steven Soderbergh for years. He was his assistant director and producer, and he would tell these stories. And one day Soderbergh says, "You got to write these down. There's a show here. That's a show," and it became Red Oaks. And it's funny, this other show that's going to air in November on Hulu, which is called There's Johnny, was a show I've been working on for years, and again, just happens to finally come together, and it's coming out now with everything else is coming out. And it takes place in 72, and it wasn't really like because I was nostalgic, but it sort of, that was there from the beginning. We wanted to do a show about that period, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't longing for nostalgia, but it was a very interesting time, and 72 was when Johnny Carson moved the Tonight Show from New York to Burbank.
Okay.
And it sort of reimagined his show and really took off and became the cultural touchstone that it became. And it was an exciting time because that sort of gave birth to the comedy clubs and all of that world. And it was an exciting time historically too. It was, I mean, every period has their friction and their news, but it was Watergate, it was Vietnam, it was the very, very beginnings of women's lib and feminism, and and East Coast coming to the West, and West Coast becoming more prominent in American culture. So, and largely, a large part due to Johnny Carson. So there was a reason, an organic reason we went there.
And it's a mix too, right? It's a mix of both.
Yeah.
Real
Yeah, well, and we use actual footage, clips of Johnny, because it's behind the scenes of the Tonight Show. So it's about a 20-year-old kid who comes out from Nebraska because he sent in a letter and he thought he got an invitation. He thought he had a job, and he shows up and he had no job at all. But he was just a nice kid, and he sort of fell into it, and he ends up staying there. So it's really seeing that world through the eyes of this very green kid, and he meets this woman who's very Hollywood and very Beverly Hills, and she's never seen a guy like him, and he's certainly never seen a woman like her.
Yeah.
And so we have these stories, these fictional characters, all running around getting a show ready for the Tonight Show, and then when they see the show, it's actually Johnny, and it's actually the Tonight Show. So we don't have any there's no actor playing Johnny, because I don't think you can do that. Everybody knows Johnny Carson pretty well. So it's really and it's done pretty seamlessly, and when you see it, and to this day, when I see an episode, I keep being surprised, like, oh my gosh, there's Johnny. It's like it's as if that's why the show's called There's Johnny, because you just don't expect him to be there. And it's very comforting, for those of us who there's a whole generation or two that don't know Johnny Carson that came of age after he was gone off the air. Yeah. And I hope they get a piece of what he was, but it's not necessary. You don't need to know Johnny Carson. It's not a show about Johnny. It's a show backstage
around Johnny.
Show business. But he was, for those of us who do remember him fondly, it's such a kick every week to see a little piece of him, and we integrate it into the story. A lot of times, we'd find a funny clip on Johnny's show, and we'd say, okay, how do we write backwards from that? How do we have our story collide with what happened on the air? And sometimes it goes the other way, and we write a story and we go looking for a clip to fit in. Yeah. But there is something about all these shows that you make a good point. I think there is when something is in the past, there's something sort of warming about it. It's safe.
Yeah.
There's so much news and there's so much alert and there's so much information, and it's constantly moving, and it's tiresome and it's exhausting. Yeah. So when you get a chance to go back, even if it's a dramatic show or a thrilling show, there's a comfort that you have in, okay, this is in the past. I can go visit this. I've already lived through the 80s, so now I can enjoy it with a little bit more with the distance. Yeah.
It's funny. You said a couple things that I thought was of interest. One, did you, as a stand-up, perform on Johnny Carson? I'm a big fan of I'm Dying Up Here on Showtime, and that's the mecca for all the comedians in the 70s.
It certainly was. Yeah, it certainly was for all of us starting out. The Tonight Show was the place to go, and it was Johnny. It wasn't the show. It was Johnny. It was Johnny's approval. And so when you get to do your first shot, it's a big deal. It was certainly a big deal for me. I actually only performed stand-up one time.
Okay.
On my first time, 1982. And there's footage out there. I don't know why it's the only one that's ever out there. And I look like a 7-year-old. It's like my voice was high. I was nervous. And it didn't sound like me. And I go, gosh, I went a long time without laughs. And but when a few years later, I started doing the show pretty regularly with Johnny, but I didn't do stand-up. I would sit down on the couch, and I prepared material, so it's sort of a sideways version. You prepare your stuff, but it was much more conversational, and Johnny would chime in with questions, and he'd help you, and he was a genius. He was really so good in a way that nobody has been since. He would, not only as a comedian, he'd know how to help you, when to come in, when to stay back. And he was a fan, so he wanted you to succeed. There was no competition. He was the king, and you were the kid, no matter how old you were, but he wanted you to succeed. And when you did well, he did well.
So it's funny you mentioned a little bit earlier, too, the fact that we have all this noise and all this news and all this other stuff. One thing we have so much of now, too, is mediums to deliver content. I mean, your 3 shows that are coming out now or are out now, Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, 3 things that didn't even exist, 5 years ago, 10 years ago in terms of that. What do you make of this phenomenon with streaming and this quote-unquote golden age of television?
Well, it's interesting how quickly we get accustomed to everything. You know,
Yeah.
there was a period, I don't know, 15 years ago where we didn't all have cell phones.
Right.
Or we had a phone, but we didn't have a device. It's like, and I don't remember anybody ever teaching like how to operate it. You just jumped in and like, I guess I got to get one of these, and suddenly everybody can use it and everybody can type. Everybody knows how to do it. And same with this. Like the first time you hear about it, it's like, what? It's not on TV. It's on the streaming, and then boom, and then now we're in, and the technology changes, and we all quickly got with the program. So for those of us making content, it's great, you know, because you're right, these shows, I think all three of the shows that I'm on would not have ever gotten made 10 years ago.
Yep.
And, you know, there's people say there's a bit of a downside because there's maybe too much content and you can't get around to it. But I don't think that's such a problem because, like, the shows are not going away. So if you put a show on wherever, you know I sometimes I'll get around to watching a show 2 years after it's been around. I'm busy. And then you sit down and go, hey, it's just as good. And some shows you want to, you know, Stranger Things, you want to watch it while it's going on because everybody's talking about it.
Yeah.
Or, you know, Game of Thrones. But a lot of things you're just like, all right. Like I just caught up with Fargo, you know, in its third year. And I went, okay, I didn't lose anything. It's great. I get it now. So I think it's only a good thing. And a lot of times you come up with an idea that isn't necessarily going to be a big smash hit or it can't necessarily run for 7 years. So now you can say, guess what? You can do a show that's only 10 episodes and you're done. Mm-hmm. And it'll live forever.
Yeah.
And so, you know, like, I mean, this one, there's Johnny. I'm not hoping we get to do some more because we got a lot of stories and we got a lot of really talented actors and it's really fun to write. But if it didn't, I'd be really content that we just told a great story for an entire season, and there it is. And it's out there forever.
Very cool, very cool. Are you a binger, or do you prefer the week-to-week format?
You know, I'm not a real binger in that I just don't have the patience to sit and watch too many of anything in a row. I just, you know, I get pulled away or I fall asleep. But I do find that shows that I like that are once a week, I will stockpile on them and just in case I get a break and like I'll watch two at a time.
Okay.
But I do feel I totally feel like that piece of us that I can't wait till next week. I can't wait till next week. That sort of that muscle has gone away because
it has.
Right, and the appointment television is gone. That was also a real revelation about the Johnny Carson show. There's Johnny. In watching those clips, what struck me is, oh my gosh, we stayed up till 11:30 because that's when it was on. You didn't get the luxury of I'll watch it tomorrow when I'm on the treadmill. It's like no, it ain't there.
Yep.
So by definition, it was a different world, and your television was more important to you because there wasn't as much.
Mm-hmm. So last question too as well, and I appreciate you. Thank you so much for taking some time to talk about this stuff. The TV reboots. I mean, Will and Grace is a big hit. Full House came back. X-Files is back. Any thoughts about a Mad About You revamp?
You know, I said to somebody I've been talking about it. I said, but I'm really only talking about it because everybody keeps asking me, so I'm suddenly talking about it. I had for years never thought about it, and then like now it seems like it's in the air and everybody's doing it. So I'm not as against it. I mean, for years I would say there's just no way I would go back because I was very content with how we ended it. We knew we were going to do our final season. And we landed the plane and wrapped everything up beautifully.
Sure.
And then people talk about it. Well, it kind of would be fun maybe to see where's that couple today. So I don't know. So it's it's not impossible. I don't know that I don't know that America is hankering for it. I don't know that I'm hankering for it, but if some genius idea comes to us and it seems doable, it could be fun.
Cool, very cool. Well, Paul, thank you so much again. I appreciate you taking some time out. And the show airs tomorrow night, and we're on iTunes, iHeart, and all that fun stuff as well.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Thanks, Mike.
Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast. I told you that was still a great interview. And I even asked him your question, which was the binge question. No, it was the alien question, actually. I think you asked me about the alien question. I remember that. I remember getting asked specifically about that, I think, from you. And then I threw the binge question in because,
Because you love that question. I don't know what
I do. I thought he gave a great answer, though.
Yeah, but it's a typical answer. It's like, I'm not a binge person, but I don't want to watch them week to week anymore. So, cake and eat it too kind of situation.
Hedging his bets, baby. Hedging his bets. All right. That was our show for the evening. Ran a little long today, but that's okay. Catch Data Decoded right after this. Catch it on the website as well, too. Next week, we will be launching the next issue of Time Trader. So we'll be doing something time related with that. We're going to do a full-on review of Top Gun. And we can also probably do a full-on review of anything we want to, except for Obi Wan, because it's still going. But we can do Stranger Things 2. Stranger Things 4. We won't review Stranger Things 2. Been a long time.
By next week, there'll only be 2 episodes of Obi Wan left. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's fast. That's fast. All right. Let us know what you think. Comment. Chat. We'll be here. We will see you guys next week. Hi guys, Mike Dolce here from the Rogue Wave podcast. If you like this video, please feel free to like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. It really helps us out. Leave a comment, let us know what you'd like to see in future episodes, and tune in every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern for a brand new episode of the